channel, welcome to another video. It's going to be a video today that is centering around the race for top four. Of course, the transfer window's been and gone. The season properly takes shape now. We get into the business end of the season week by week. So everything in the league table is on from this point forward. And there isn't a race more heated, I believe, than the race to get into that final top four spot. I say final top four spot because I believe that 3 of the 4 spots are already taken, which we'll obviously talk about in this video. But before we go any further in talking about the race for top 4, I would like to remind you all to please like the video and also subscribe if you're new. Both things are always and forever be greatly appreciated. But for now, let's get into this video. The race for top 4 from this point, like I say, is very well and truly on. The transfer window has been and gone. The dust has settled on the winter transfer market. There's no more that any team can do to boost their squad, to strengthen their squad, to boost their chances of getting into that top 4 spot and finishing as high up the table as they can, because it's all done and dusted. And now it's all about what you can do on the pitch. It's all about your performances and your results on the pitch that matter the most. And there are, like I say, a number of teams that are currently jostling for position, seemingly for that top 4 spot. As the table currently stands, Manchester City are top of the table and seemingly have already secured one of the 4 spots that are available. Liverpool are in second and are unlikely to move out of the top 4 as well, whilst Chelsea are also seen as being another team that are holding one of the top 4 spots and will remain in at least the top 3 going forward. So it seems that there's seemingly one spot left in the race for top 4 to gain Champions League football for next season. But like I say, there are several teams in contention for it. So who are they and how do I rate their chances? Well, first up, currently occupying that 4th spot is Manchester United. Now, it's been a transfer window of more outgoings than incomings. They haven't really strengthened at all, in all honesty. They've got rid of a few players, albeit on loan. Add on top of that the Mason Greenwood situation. They've got a very weaker team coming out of January than they had going into it. In saying that though, United still have, I believe, the strongest squad of them all. They've got the experience, the quality, the match winners, especially in the forms of Bruno Fernandes and Cristiano Ronaldo, whilst having David De Gea in goal, who has arguably been the standout performer for United this campaign. The issue, I believe, is that we're not sure if the mentality, the attitude, the cohesion and the consistency is all there at the club from top to bottom that will get them over the line in this instance. There's a constant whirlwind of reports that seem to come from in the club, outside of the club, speculation on the club about how the club seemingly daily has internal issues going through it from top to bottom. The club seems very disjointed, and on top of that, it seems that it's taking a lot of time for Ralph Rangnick to get his idea and his philosophy and his style of play on this squad. There's also the factor of the Champions League football to consider. However long they may last in that tournament remains to be seen. But of course, United competing on different fronts this season could also take its toll on the club and of course where they end up finishing in the table. There's a lot to factor in. Some other teams are not obviously competing on all the fronts. Some other teams are obviously better as a cohesive unit. Some other teams don't really have these internal problems that United do. And the fact of the matter is that everybody has a tricky fixture list as well. But if you look at United's fixture list, particularly toward the end of the season, they have a massive cluster of very tough fixtures coming up at the end of the campaign, against teams that are going to be fighting for different things, it seems, against teams that have been very difficult to beat this season. I think that it's going to be a very tough ask for United. Not impossible, of course. Like I say, I do believe they have the best team of the lot, but I think it's going to be tough. They have the team. They arguably, but arguably, they may not have the manager, the reliability, the cohesion to remain there at the end of the campaign. Currently occupying 5th spot is West Ham, but the problem with West Ham, of course, is that they've played 1 or 2 more games more than the teams that are in and around them. So there's potential that they could slip a little bit more down the table when everybody else catches up. I just have to say that I think that the job that David Moyes has done there to not only resurrect his own career, but to also build up West Ham again has been incredible. Everybody's expecting this massive fall away part of West Ham, and for them to just fade away and fall away at some point, and maybe that will come in time. But I think for right now, for them to be in the conversation as to breaking into that top 4 spot is a pretty good achievement overall. And regardless of what happens this season, if they can remain in and around where they currently are right now, I think finishing this for the 2nd season in a row within the top 6 would be an incredible achievement in itself as well. I think they may be lacking in defensive areas. I think that you have to look at that as being partially not recruiting, but also the injuries that they've suffered as well. I think that their squad is not as big as some of the others. I also think that there is the Europa League football factor to consider. They're obviously competing in the Europa League, and that could also be a factor similar to what we talked about earlier with Manchester United, where they're competing on different fronts as well. But like I say, if they can maintain a top 6 finish for the 2nd season in a row, if they can give a good account of themselves in the Europa League, it might be a proud season for West Ham overall. But unfortunately, I just don't think they have enough about them to finish within the top 4. In 6th, we currently have Arsenal. Mikel Arteta's Arsenal, a transfer window that has promised a lot. Had a lot of speculation surrounding it, constant rumour mill buzzing around saying Arsenal are going to sign this player, this player, this player, this player. And in the end, they signed one player who was not one of the big names that was buzzing around, and sold or loaned out a whole host of players. The squad is arguably very thin. You would worry if suspensions and injuries mount up again, that their team isn't going to be strong enough to maintain the challenge of a top 4 race this season, should it come to that. And I would say that in midfield and with their striking options in particular, they are very thin in those key particular areas. You look at their midfield options, the likes of Thomas Partey, Granit Xhaka, very inconsistent in the centre of midfield. And you look at obviously their striking options in Eddie Nketiah and Alexander Lacazette. Again, very thin in both departments. The only upside for Arsenal is that unlike other teams, with the possible exception of maybe like a Spurs or something, they aren't competing on multiple fronts. They've got the league solely to focus on. They're going to be playing basically 1 game a week, which could end up benefiting the Gunners in the long run, despite their inconsistency, or in spite of their inconsistency, because their inconsistency could come back to bite them. But if they can maintain the focus and discipline on that 1 game a week, then it could benefit them. They're not having to travel across Europe to face any kind of European football. They're not having to travel for any sort of domestic cup competition and play that kind of game. So their focus is solely on the league, which could, like I say, benefit them. In my opinion, they need to find some consistency, particularly in front of goal, to stand a chance. This was a great opportunity for Arsenal, I believe, in the transfer window to really push on and make a statement of intent about their top 4 chances, really grab the ball by the horns, so to speak, in this race, and actually go out and make a marquee signing, really go all out for Vlahovic, or really go all out for Alexander Isak, or anybody like that, just to make some sort of statement. And they didn't really lay down that marker to do that. And on top of that, 1 game a week, which would benefit them greatly over the other clubs, I believe, it seemed this top four race was definitely in Arsenal's hands for the taking going into January. But they've let it slip, in my opinion. I think they've let it slip. I think that it's now out of their hands and in the hands of another team. They're not out of the question. Of course they're not. They've done well to get this far as it is. But I don't think they'll get there. Unless Mikel Arteta can pull something out of the hat here, I don't believe they will get to top four. If Mikel Arteta can find some consistency with this team, if he can get Lacazette firing on all cylinders in front of goal, he may have a chance, but I just don't think Arsenal will get there. I can just see them missing out, in all honesty. Occupying 7th right now is Tottenham. Now, Tottenham managed to get a couple of signings in on transfer deadline day. Up until that point, though, it was a rather underwhelming, frustrating, and albeit rather embarrassing January winter window for Spurs, who lost out on a couple of big targets within the matter of days of each other. Tottenham managed to sign a winger and a midfielder, two areas that Antonio Conte clearly wanted to strengthen this January, but it didn't. He certainly would have liked more, but it just clearly didn't materialise. The Adama Traore and Luis Diaz situations, for example, doing all the hard work and then having other teams swoop in at the 11th hour to take them right out of their hands, clearly must have frustrated the club and, of course, Conte himself. I think Tottenham have the upper hand in this race, though. I think with all being said and all being done, I actually do believe that Tottenham have the upper hand in this race for top four, because I think they just have the manager factor. Like, you can argue that Arsenal have had their manager for longer, so they may have more cohesion within their squad. You can also see that with the whole Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang situation, how their team have seemed to rally a little bit. They may miss him and may miss his flair and his goals and whatever he may provide on his day, but there seems to be a lot more cohesion there. You can argue that Manchester United, like I've said, have the best team on paper. I think, in my opinion, they clearly do. Their starting 11, their squad, probably is the best team on paper out of the entirety of the teams that I've talked about. But Tottenham have the upper hand in their manager. A manager in Antonio Conte who has a winning mentality, knows how to get the job done, has a resume that is very, very, very illustrious, with tons of achievements, tons of accolades, tons of awards on it. And he knows what it takes to get the job done. He knows how to get the best out of his players, even those players that are obviously seen as being average or whatever their level may be. He knows how to get the best out of them and to make them play better than what they are. And you can tell that at Spurs, in the early days of his reign as manager, there is a slight change in the way that Spurs are playing, with his style and philosophy being implemented on this squad very early on. There's even a change, I believe, in their belief. Their belief seems to have changed, and there seems to be a changing sort of slight mentality, however slightly that may be right now, and whether that may continue or not remains to be seen. But you have to only look at the results against both Watford and Leicester as examples of the change in belief. Spurs only really have the league to focus on. Yes, they are competing in the FA Cup, but there's no European football to contend with, so they're really only competing in both the FA Cup and the Premier League. However long that FA Cup run lasts remains to be seen. But obviously the race for top four will mean so much more to them, simply for the reason that it's a case of getting into the top four, getting money for what they want, and for how they want to do it, and obviously with their stadium and the fact that they're losing money from every home game and so on and so forth, they will want that Champions League football. I just think it's a priority of getting his main players firing on all cylinders. Like, Conte can handle the defensive side. Regardless of what players you hand in, he can handle the defensive side of things. But he can get Harry Kane scoring at a more consistent level, if he can get Son Heung-min to rediscover his good form of previous seasons gone by, if they remain strong and disciplined and focused, and which are all qualities of Antonio Conte's side, but maybe not be qualities of Tottenham's sides of years gone by, then I believe that Spurs will have the best chance of getting into the top four. To me, they have the best chance, but it will be interesting to see if the manager's winning mentality will outweigh the club's mental block of a bottling mentality. And finally, in 8th, we have Wolves. Now, in a top 4 race, which everybody seems to be focusing mainly on Manchester United, West Ham, Arsenal and Tottenham, I believe that this side are the outsiders in this and should not be overlooked in the slightest. They have a couple of games in hand over the teams that are above them, so they could actually close the points gap if they manage to get the points on the board in this race for top 4. They could well be in the mix within those games, so when they eventually do catch up, we know that obviously Wolves have been very solid this season, but I think that Bruno Lage's side have done very well overall, and I think Bruno Lage, for his first season in the Premier League, has really taken to the league very well, taken to Wolves very well, and I think that they've actually gone a little bit under the radar, considering obviously other big stories that have been going on within the league that have sort of overshadowed Wolves a little bit. And I think that may have actually benefited them. That's not really a criticism, that just may have actually benefited Wolves to go slightly a bit more under the radar, and just go about their business as they have been doing, and therefore I believe deserve to be in this conversation. Wolves have the second best defensive record in the league this season. They've been incredible defensively, a solid, disciplined and well-drilled machine at the back. The only issue for them is that they haven't managed to really find a consistent enough goal scorer. Wolves have the 3rd lowest goal scoring record this season, which is incredible considering they are in 8th. But of course, like I mentioned, it's their incredible defensive record that has sort of balanced that out, and is the main reason why they are so high up. The defensive record could be sustainable enough for them to be consistent enough to possibly get into the Europa League places, but I just fear that unless they can find a consistent enough goal scorer, whether they can find the goal scoring touch for like a Raul Jimenez or a Hwang Hee-chan, a Daniel Podence, or even Fabio Silva, if not one of them 4 players can pick up some good consistent goal scoring form as we enter the back end of the season, I just feel that maybe top 4 might be a bit of a stretch for them. But Europa League certainly is a very real possibility again for Wolves. So don't rule them out on a top 4, but top 6, more of a likely chance in my opinion. Like I said, these are the main contenders in my opinion as of right now for who's going to be making it into the top 4, that final top 4 spot. But there is, of course, a lot of football left to be played this season. Like I say, I personally put my money on Spurs to getting top 4, just for the Antonio Conte effect alone. I also see inconsistencies, a lack of reliability, and a lack of strength in key areas for other teams that I've talked about in this video. And I think that Conte has the experience, determination, and the know-how for how to get Spurs over the finish line and playing Champions League football for next season. Regardless of their history of bottling things and throwing things away when they appear to be in their hands, I think Conte changes that, and his discipline and winning mentality will see Spurs through and across the finish line and into the top 4 for this season. But of course, as I always say, these are just the thoughts, comments, opinions, predictions, whatever you want to call it, of this guy. I want to know what you guys think. What do you make of anything that I talked about in this video in regards to the top 4 race? What do you make of the teams that I talked about? Do you think that maybe there are other teams that are in the mix? Do you think that maybe 2 of these teams that I talked about in the mix, and maybe one of the top 3 that I said was pretty much a certainty to finish in the top 4, maybe drops out? What do you think of the teams in general, so on and so forth? I'd love to know your thoughts, your comments, opinions, predictions, whatever you want to call it, down below in the comment section on this topic, because I'm sure it will all make for interesting reading. Otherwise, hit that like button on the way out. I've enjoyed the video. Subscribe if you're new and want to see more content like this. Both things always and forever be greatly appreciated. And as always, thank you all so much for watching and listening. I've been Fletch. This has been another Fletch Talks video, and I will see and speak with you all again soon in another video.